Hi everyone, so today we're going to start a 4-part series on rig tying, what we use to make the rigs, and then how we store the rigs. But if we're just meeting, I'm Courtney with Life for Real. I'm a marketer by trade, but my passion is fishing. So Life for Real was created to help support local business and share tips, tricks, and techniques to help you be more successful in the water. So here's the thing. Fishing is not a science. It is getting out there, getting on the water, and trying new things. We have failed and failed again and come home with no fish. But guess what? We stuck to it and we kept trying. So we're going to share some tips and tricks with you that you may have never heard of. You may have never tried, but I encourage you to try new things. Get out of your way. Stop being scared to fail. Because as soon as you get past that fear of failure, you will be successful. I mean, who thought of Diet Pepsi shrimp? Who thought, let's put shrimp in a Diet Pepsi and this will work? But guess what? It does, and people are trying it and they're being successful. So if you're finding this content really helpful and you're loving what you're seeing, don't forget to hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe. And don't forget to stick around to the end because we're going to share some really cool techniques with you that are going to make you successful. Okay, so we're going to start part 1 of the rig making series. We're going to do the double dropper first. Very common, a lot of people use these, but a lot of people don't know how to make them. So we're going to show you how and what we use. But first, let me introduce you to my partner in crime, my ride or die, my VP of Fishing Operations, Captain Kirk.
Hi everybody.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot that goes into tying rigs.
Yep.
It's not, you can do it, with your eyes closed. It takes me a little more effort, but the main thing that you have to have first and the materials that you need, you're all gonna see right here on the table. But let's get started with what is this and where do we get this from?
Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is having a rig board to make double dropper rigs. So there's a couple things that you can do for getting a rig board. One, you can buy one. That's honestly what we did. We got ours from Noel Kuhn. Sometimes he makes them. You can go to the surfangler.com and message him and see if he'll make you one. That's what we did, and it works out really well. Also, the Sinker Guy will make you a rig board, or you can buy them from the Sinker Guy if you reach out to him at thesinkerguy.com.
Yeah, chips and nulls are a little different though.
They are a little different, but at the end of the day,
they serve the same purpose.
They serve the same purpose, yep. If you want to make one yourself, if you want a kind of a quick little home project, the Sinker Guy actually showed how to make a rig board on YouTube, so you can look at that video as well. So those are really your 3 options. We were lazy, we just went and bought one.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so if we were going to, okay, you've got the board, you've made it, or you bought it, either way, what's next? I mean, we get a lot of questions on social media about what rigs do we use, what size hooks do we use, where do you get floats? So we just want to make sure that you have all the information that you need to make the different rigs that we're going to do. So now that you have the board, let's talk about the line. So what pound test are we using? What kind of line are we using? Why?
Okay, so really the line that we use, we use monofilament. I know some people are really diehard about wanting to use fluorocarbon. I don't know, we just don't use it. We use monofilament. So most of the double dropper rigs that we tie, we use 25 or 30 pound monofilament. So I like the Momo Eyes, I think is how, Momo Eyes, I don't know how you really pronounce it. It's from Japan, Momo Eye, we'll go with it.
Momoi?
Momoi. You can leave a comment to let us know how to properly pronounce that. But I get all my fishing line, or we get all of our fishing line from Strike Zone. I mean, they have a huge variety. We get these little 500-yard spools of whatever pound test that we want to do. So the first thing we get, we use monofilament. Again, if you're a diehard fluorocarbon, I'm not telling you to stop using what you're using to be successful, but this is just personally what we use. So we carry or get a variety of this fishing line, and we go to Strike Zone. You can probably go online and buy it, but I just love tackle shops and going into tackle shops. So yeah, I like going into Strike Zone, and that's where I get all our fishing line from. So first things first, you got to have line, and that's what we get. Second thing to go through, again, it's Strike Zone or wherever you want to get these. You can get this stuff from the Sinker Guy as well. I like to use the Boone's tackle for the little swivels and the clasps attach our sinker guy sinker to. So we go and get this at Strike Zone as well. So you're going to need packs of these. I like the 50-pound test. Some people will do a 65-pound test. It's really personal preference on what you want to use, but I use those as well. Hooks for the double dropper rigs, we use the Eagle Claw Circle C L197 circle hooks. Depending on what we're fishing for, usually a 1/0 to 2/0 hook is what we're going to use for our double dropper rig. So again, you can buy these from the Sinker Guy. You can go to Strike Zone if you want to do whatever you want to do, or wherever you get it from. We shop local, so those are really the two places we get stuff from.
So what's the reasoning behind using hooks that are smaller?
You really, I mean, a lot of people find this hard to believe, but you don't need a big hook to catch a big fish. I know it's hard to believe. We'll see people out on the beach fishing where they'll have like a 5/0 circle hook, an entire piece of shrimp, and then you look at a whiting's mouth and it's that big. So some of the fish, even if they're a bigger fish, may have a small mouth. And really, on our double dropper rigs, we never go over size 2/0. So anywhere from 2/0 to a size 1, that's the variation of the size hooks that we use to do our rigs.
You would be surprised at the size of fish that you catch on those hooks.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
You could follow me on social media to see all of those pictures.
Yeah,
because they're there
and
all
they
exist.
Yeah, all the pictures that you see of the fish that we catch on there, besides tarpon or big sharks, are all caught on a maximum of a 2/0 hook, which is not very big.
Yeah.
Going through with the double dropper rigs, a lot of people use floats, and we use floats as well. There's a ton of different color floats out there that we use, and a ton of different styles of floats to use. So really, this comes down to personal preference. We buy all of our floats from the Sinker Guy. Yeah. He's a surf fisherman. He carries a crazy selection of floats to use for your rigs, and some of them are bigger that'll keep your bait up off the bottom. Some of them are smaller floats, like those little ones. So if you want to get floats, again, I get them all from there. We get them all from the Sinker Guy, so that's where we get those.
So do you think color matters?
Ooh, color definitely matters. And it just depends. We just fish a variety of colors and a variety of different styles on our rigs. And some days a chartreuse float will outperform a pink one 10-1, or maybe a pink won't even get one. Or some days, if the watercolor's a little dirty, maybe an orange one is really on fire, and we catch all of our fish from that. So it really just depends. And I guess the best piece of advice that I would give people is, when you have your rod spread set up, fish a variety of different rigs and floats.
Yes. And bait.
And bait, of course.
And find what works and use it.
And change up to that, absolutely. So that's what we have for floats. Sometimes we use little beads. So for some of these little beads, like these sea strikers, these work really good. Obviously, they're not going to float. It's just going to sit on the bottom, and these are just made for little attractors. Some people really go as far as to get a different variety of beads that you get at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. Yeah, you can get different style beads and try to match the color of the little like clams that are in there. We do sometimes, but I've never really found that to be that beneficial where it's like a certain color bead produces.
So when you have the beads, you do more than one bead, like 2 beads, so that they clank together to make noise? I mean, I've heard that that's a...
Yeah, and we do those on our rigs. We'll have a couple beads sometimes, but it's never been so wildly successful that we're just like, man, this is like the hot ticket to it. But then again, one day successful, like hot rig, you can go to the same spot, fish the same bait in the same rig the next day, and they're gonna hit something else and turn their nose up to that. So variety.
And be willing to change up.
Yep, but these little beads work as well, and usually with the double dropper rigs, we put a float on the top one and a bead on the bottom one.
Yep.
So that's how we fish those. So that's kind of a walkthrough for the rigs. Obviously, you know, to top off the rig, we always do a Sinker Guy Sputnik sinker, and that pretty much rounds it out for the materials and the stuff that we use for our double dropper rigs.
Yeah, cool. So I think maybe we should just go ahead and get started. We've answered all the questions that most people ask. Would you say that the double dropper is the superior of rigs, or is it just based on what you're fishing for? I mean, what are some of the pros and cons of this specific rig?
So there's no one size rig fits all. It's like somebody saying, I want to buy a boat and I want one that'll do everything. And it's like, well, that just doesn't exist. So some of the pros for the double dropper rig is when you have a rig board, you can make these things so fast and have like a really good stockpile of rigs. So if you go out and you get into sharks or bluefish and they're just cutting up and tearing up your rigs, I mean, you can just you can make a ton of these. You can sit in
Yep.
front of the TV and just tie rigs till you're blue in the fingers. So making the rigs and be able to produce them really quickly is definitely a pro for
Okay.
it. One of the cons that I see, a couple cons with the rig is, one, to get the loops, because you're putting a loop through the eye of the hook, and you can only get so big of a line to go through there.
Right.
So one of the things, if you want to cast further, or you're using a heavier weight like a 4 ounce or a 5 ounce weight to really cast out there, and let's say the water's clear, and you're like, well, I'm going to scale down my size of rig material to 20 pound, and you're casting a 5 ounce weight, you really run the risk when you're really power casting
Snap.
for that to snap and pop
Yep.
off. So that's one of the things that, you know, I see as a con to it, is whatever pound test you tie the rig to, that's what you're committed to. And if you're going to use a heavier sinker, you run the risk of having a crack off there and losing your sinker in your rig. So that's kind of a bummer when that happens. But
It's never a good day.
yeah. The sinker guy will love you, but yeah, you'll be kind of bummed when, you know, that $5 is just, you know, you're paying the ocean. So those are really kind of the pros and cons of it as well. There's really no variation.
Yeah.
If you want to make like a longer or a shorter like dropper for it, once you have your rig board set up, like that's what you're getting.
It is, yeah.
So-
It is what it is at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. But those are some of the pros and the cons, but still the most widely used and the most useful from all surf fishermen. And the nice thing about these, if for some reason you don't want to make them, you can buy double dropper loop rigs, you know, anywhere.
Yeah.
My recommendation, the sinker guy. He's a surf fisherman. He makes great double dropper rigs.
Yep.
But if you don't, you can obviously go to a local tackle shop or a local
Yeah.
bait shop, and they'll usually carry them. However, a lot of times if you get like the cheap made in China ones, they'll have like a really big cal hook, and you know, the going with the smaller hook things,
Right.
I really just don't use those. So I would try to use somebody local. But there's people up and down the state of Florida that make double droppers, but we make ours, and I would recommend the sinker guys, the Bruno rig that you can get
Yeah.
on his website.
And you know, if you're in a local tackle shop and you see those double droppers, obviously support them too. So
Yep.
okay, well, I think we've done enough talking here.
We have.
Hopefully giving you a lot of insight into what we use for the double dropper. We call it the Life for Real double dropper, which I'm sure you've seen before. But I think we should just get down to business and make the rig.
Let's
so
tie a
everybody
rig.
knows how to do it.
Absolutely.
Let's get started making the double dropper rig, but make sure that you grab a notebook, or even better, save it to your watch list so that you can watch it over and over again, because you're going to want to learn how to do this. Let's do it.
All right, let's get started. First thing that we're going to do today is to do a 25-pound double dropper rig, loop rig. So again, we're using the Momois.
Momoy, I like that.
We'll go with Momoy. So we're just going to set that in this first nail that's here. And we're going to take our little snap swivel here and just tie a basic clinch knot. Now when you tie these knots, you should always lubricate your knot with some spit, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to lubricate the knot. So I can get my eyes to work and that go through there. We just tie a basic clinch knot, tighten it down, clip our tag in, and now we're ready to start routing it on the board. So the first thing, we want to go under this first nail, and then we want to go around the whole loop, under the last nail, and then we're going to clamp our snap swivel in our little clamp here. Now that we have that, this is going to be our loop, and now we just need to tie the knot to secure that. So what I do is I take my finger, and you just put one of the ones over the other one and just go back and forth in this little over, under motion. And you want to do 3 or 4 of those, so that way you can see the line here.
Yeah.
It's twisted and wrapped around. Once you do that, you just need to take your line and take it off of this nail.
The one that's closest
The
to
one
you.
that's closest to you, so that's free. And then you're going to put that through the loop. So hopefully the camera picks that up and you can see that good, but you see how that loop that was attached to this line went between the loop there. Now once you do that, you can pull this off, and then you just tighten it down. And for this one, I always put it in my teeth because you kind of need a third hand to do this. So there we go. So Courtney's going to put it in her finger there, and then you're just going to tighten that down. And again, you would lubricate that with spit. Thanks for your help.
No problem.
And now you have your first loop of your double dropper loop. So once you have that, you're going to release your snap swivel end. or swivel end at the top there. So now we're gonna just go around again. So we're gonna go under again, around the circle again, underneath the one, and then where your loop is right here, your knot, just clamp that guy right in your little clamp there, because now we're gonna do our bottom loop of the double dropper loop.
Okay.
So again, take a finger, put one line over one, hook it under the other, and then you just want to start going back and forth and just making these turns. And this is really the nice thing about having this rig board.
Yep.
You can make these so quickly once you get the hang of it down. I mean, you can just make rig after rig after rig. So after you have your wraps there and you have the little opening here, slide off the hook, put it through the center, and then you have your rig like this.
I'm gonna let you go for this. I mean, if somebody's doing this by themselves, this is how they have to do it. So let's put those pearly whites to some good use here. There we go.
There we go. Now we have our second double dropper loop. So once you do this, some people will measure this, but my personal way that I do this is I'll take this, the bottom double dropper loop, and I'll just hold it to the edge of the rig board.
Right.
Okay? And then that's gonna mark my spot where I'm gonna cut off at my spool. And now we're 3/4 of the way done with our double dropper loop. The only thing we have left is to tie the bottom snap swivel, and this is where you're gonna clip your sinker guy sinker to.
Is this another clinch knot?
This is another clinch knot,
Okay.
yep. So we're just gonna go through, tie a basic clinch knot, which is just wrapping up the hook, or up the line. So you're just gonna do some twists up the line, and then you're gonna pass your tag end through the loop. It's harder to see when it's further away.
That's what,
Grab
that's what
that.
Old age have.
That's
what
old age, yep.
happens.
And then you're just gonna tighten that down, and then there's your basic clinch knot. So
So if you guys are actually finding the knot tying really helpful, go ahead and comment on which knots maybe you need help with tying, or we can even do a knot series on what works for different situations. So definitely comment, let us know if you'd like to see a tutorial on different knots.
Yeah, that would not be a bad idea. Okay, so now
Actually,
we have the...
Adam Morley from Ganungs would love that.
that
He is
was
the
for
pun
you.
master.
That was for you, Adam. So now we have like the main body of our double dropper loop made. We have our swivel at the top, our snap swivel at the bottom to hold our sinker guy sinker, and we have 2 loops. Now we still have a couple steps left here. So now for the top loop, you just kind of want to pull that together and kind of get it to a point, you know, to kind of train the end, so it streamlines it a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get one of our chartreuse floats that we got from Sinker Guy, and we're just going to go like this, and we're just going to take that, and there's a little hole in the top, and we're just going to train this. And this is why you have to really get it where it'll come to somewhat of a point, because it's got to go through a little bit of a smaller hole. So this is where you got to get your fingers working, and then I just push it through the front of the sinker, the leader, the loop. Okay, so now your float's on there, you have your loop right here, and the last thing we have to do is to put our hook on there. So here is our Eagle Claw.
Which size is that?
L197, and it's a 2.0 is what
Okay.
we're going to put on the top. And again, hook size, the thing that makes the difference is what are you fishing for?
Right.
Right now, it's cold out. Really, the only thing that we've been catching on our surf fishing is whiting.
Whiting.
So if you're just going to fish for whiting, you really need like a size 1 or a 1.0 hook. You really don't need a big hook. If
Right.
it's summertime and there's mullet in the surf, and you're going to maybe use like a finger mullet head or a mullet chunk or something like that, maybe then you'll go up to
Use a
like a
bigger
2.0
hook.
hook. Yep. So now we have the same little loop here that our float is put on, and then what you're going to do is just put this through the eye of the hook, and this is where the Eagle Claw hooks are nice because they have a bigger eye of the hook. So you push your loop through the hook, and then you're just going to pass it over the hook, and you can see now it's going back, and it's just going to go and tighten up the hook, and you just give it a little pull and it's right there. So now you have your float on the top, and you have your hook there, and when it's all said and done and hooked up and looped in there, that's what it'll look like. Now, as a quick little pro tip that we use to do this, is sometimes what'll happen is this float, it's really loose on there. So if you have the loose float, and what happened, the float may go here, and then your bait
Yeah.
And fish bite's
That
gonna
looks
dangle down
ridiculous.
like that, yeah. So what we do is we slide it up there, and then in the little hole right there, if you just get just a regular toothpick, you can shove a toothpick in the circle there and just kind of break it off or cut it off and tuck it in there. And that will actually keep your float positioned right there. So that way the float is doing what it's designed to do and actually float the bait up off of the bottom. So that's our first loop. So we'll put a float on that, a 2-0 hook. And then we're gonna go to our bottom one and do the same thing. Now usually on the bottom one, if we fish like a sand flea or maybe a chunk of shrimp on the top, on the bottom we put like a clam or a crab knuckle or something that's just gonna sit on the bottom. So I train my loop there to come to a little bit of a point. And for this one, we're just gonna put a little bead on the bottom one. So I'm just gonna get a single bead here. And as you can see, we always vary the color. So we have a little orange bead. Oops, that's one that rolls around. A little orange bead on the bottom, and we have a chartreuse float on the top. If every fish that you're catching is on chartreuse, change out your rigs and put chartreuse on multiple rigs. If it's all doing like an orange color on an orange bead, take the floats off and just fish a bead and your bait dead on the bottom. So now we're just gonna pass this through here, through the little bead itself. So now you can see our bead is over our loop. On the bottom one, we're gonna take a small 1-0 hook. And again, if you're looking at that hook size, 1-0 hooks, these are not big hooks, and you do not need a big hook to catch big fish.
So why are we using 2 different size hooks on the same rig?
Just to vary or change up. You don't have to. I mean, sometimes we vary and we do a 2-0 on the top and 1-0 on the bottom. If we're just gonna fish smaller bait, like if clams are really popular, then maybe we do 2 number 1 hooks.
Okay.
You know, it's really up to you. Not every situation is the same. And the nice thing about the double dropper is it's really, if you want to change these out really quickly, you can change them out very quickly and just put on a bigger or smaller hook depending on what you're using. So same thing, just like before, we have our loop piece there, and it's just going to pass right through the eye of the hook. And then we're going to loop the hook through that and then just pull it tight. And now that's secured right on there. And then our bead, which is just a little, all that bead is doing is maybe it's just a little attractor, or if you like to do it where you want to match the hatch and have some different color beads, I mean, you can slide on whatever bead you want on there. And then once that's done, you can see, after it stabs me, our finished product. Oops, there we go. Well, it's kind of up there. And there is our completed double dropper loop rig.
Yeah, and it is definitely it's one of the more popular rigs. Again, it's so fast to make, and it's very versatile. So
Yep.
Highly recommend.
Absolutely. Well,
All right.
there it is, double dropper loop done.
Woo! Go catch some fish. Okay, so you just watched how to make
Double dropper rig.
that one. We talked you through the materials that we use, exactly how to make it, the benefits of it, pros, cons, why it's so easy to make, and why it's so widely used. But we're gonna go down the dark hole of some new rigs that you probably have never used, maybe never even heard of, definitely haven't made yourself, and it's gonna be really, really interesting. We might reveal some secrets as well. So definitely stay tuned. Get your pen and paper ready because it's gonna be good, y'all. All right, so keep watching, hit the like button, make sure that you put this on your watch list because you're gonna wanna see it over and over and over again because you will be a fish slayer.
Yes.
Just saying. That's what you wanted, right?